Hey there, you rebelicious soul. It is great to have you here. I'm excited to inspire you again today, and I hope that this podcast episode will open up new possibilities within you. Enjoy and feel free to reach out if I can support you in any way. All right, so let's kick it off. The second season of this podcast, in which I'm going to turn my focus entirely to relationships and what makes them go round. It's a topic, or it's actually a life area that's been fascinating me for over 20 years. And I've, lived quite some lives in the relationship department and decided, you know what? This is something that really connects us all. We're all in relationship with each other. We're all connected. So what we share is that we all have relationships. It's something that really nurtures us, that defines the qualities of our lives, actually. So today, I would like to start this new season with the topic that sometimes a lot of people put so much value on. And I'm like, yeah, so what? And it's about chemistry. And I know how amazing it can be when you feel that there's this deep connection with someone. It's just so strong, and it's just so much more than physical, Oof, I know that. I've been there so many times. And to many people, this doesn't just happen that often. So when it does happen, I can totally imagine that you're like, wowed, that this is something that you want to cherish and want to amplify. To other people like me, it's like doing groceries. You get to meet people everywhere, connect with them everywhere, and there's like an abundance. What I learned, because I've had so many amazing opportunities of connecting with people. In my case, I am drawn mostly to men. And I was just blown away sometimes by the depth of the connection that was there. I thought that was something that I wanted to just experience over and over again. It was like that buzzing feeling that just, that lights up your eyes, that makes you feel so super sexy and adventurous, and, that chemistry that can lead to mind-blowing sex and endless conversations. So I had that quite a lot. And so for a long time, I really thought that this was the holy grail of getting into a new relationship. I really thrived on this, on the connections that I felt. Some of my friends and acquaintances, they even said, you're always in love. It's like an addiction to being in love almost. And I even thought of actually starting to write a book about that. Because the thing is, it made me feel alive and desired and seen. And you might recognize what I'm talking about, because I'm sure that even if it's just a few times or once that you've experienced this in your life as well, that feeling of aliveness, of knowing that there's someone that is just craving your presence and your touch and your kisses. However, many of us fail to consider that connection in itself is not enough. In my case, having that mind-blowing, so deep connection was actually what held me back from finding someone who I could relate to on the long term. Why? Well, because I just focused on the experience and how I felt in it. And the rest was just my imagination. I was like, oh my God, I feel so amazing, and I feel desired, and I feel seen, and the rest I just made up. So the romances I engaged in for a long time were projections of how I wanted a relationship to be and what I wanted from a relationship. Back in the days when I was still a storyteller, and a writer, I just loved creating my own make-believe stories around connections. As did my romantic counterparts, obviously. We basically saw in each other what we wanted to see. And now I just want to say that this is also completely normal. This is what we do in the beginning of a new connection. We think that it's all roses and rainbows and, oh my God, I've never experienced something like this before. And what we actually do is we create this beautiful image of who this person is, but it's not the truth. And that was the only possible outcome in my stories, in my romances as well. The bubble just had to burst. Why? Because stories are not reality. Reality actually includes a lot more. And I'm also very sure that you know what I'm talking about here, because, when you put two people or more together in a relationship, they each bring their own history, their own trauma, their own current situation and what's going on there, their own wants and future plans and goals. Now, I'm not going to say that I didn't consider that. I'm not going to say that you're not considering that at all. It's not that black and white. But because, when I was, for example, I was 24 and I entered a 6-year relationship at that time. I was quite clear at that moment that, I might never want to have kids. And that was a very important question, it was something, it's so fundamental before you enter a relationship, that at some point you ask this question in the beginning. And given that, usually it's almost like taken for granted someone wants that, I found it important to say that. So I've always known a little bit of that, and I'm sure that you know that that you need something more. And still, what I notice a lot in people is that they still tend to focus so much on the connection and on the chemistry that they forget to become really precise. I really had to learn that as well, to become more and more precise in what I wanted over the years. So many short-lived, often 3-month romances, included a little more consideration of the important questions. Like, there was something there, but still it was the connection that guided me. If I'm just speaking from my experience, that is something that really, that was leading. And perhaps you recognize that, the excitement of falling in love again, and it can blind you for a while. It's invigorating, it's exhilarating, and especially, like I said before, if it doesn't happen that often. But we really need to remind ourselves that it's not enough. And if you're currently in the process of dating, or maybe you're longing for a new relationship, or you're already in a long-term relationship that doesn't really seem to be working, I would like to ask you these following questions. Are you compatible? Do you both have the emotional, energetic, and practical capacity to commit? And is there a mutual willingness to, really show up? And these 3 questions relate to 3 pillars that are really also needed next to chemistry and connection to build a healthy relationship on. So let me just go into that just a little bit, and we'll unpack that in other podcasts in the future. But for now, let's look at the first question. Like, are you compatible? And with that question, I mean, do you have the same vision for the future? For example, about the relationship. Like, do you want to live together? Do you see yourself traveling all the time? Like, what kind of lifestyle are you both looking to develop together? And does that align? Are you both anchored in a monogamous relationship, or does either one of you want to be non-monogamous? And is there a way to align that, even when one of you is monogamous and the other isn't? And if it's not, then you need to be really clear about that, because otherwise you're going to set yourself up for heartbreak. Another question is, are you compatible on the topic of children? Like, does that align? Are you compatible in terms of values? And if you do have opposite views, for example, on political values, then, is there a way to work with that? Not everyone can do that. Not everyone wants to, embrace a partner who is so close and who you see almost every day or every day, who has a very different political view. So these are very important questions to ask yourself. You need to know what the deal breakers are. You know, what are the negotiables? What are the non-negotiables? And then the second question that I just asked is, do you both have the emotional, energetic, and practical capacity? And capacity really is about the fact that you need to make time. Like, we have certain resources. Time is one of them. Can you make that time right now? Or is your life so overfull and are you not willing to make that time at this point? For whatever reason. I can decide that for you. There's no right or wrong here. If you've just gotten out of a 15-year long relationship and you're now committing to a new, for example, you're in a deep training for the entire year, you're completely reinventing yourself, you might not have the time, or you might not have the energetic capacity, for example, because it might not be where you are. You might need something else right now to really reconnect to yourself first. That's also possible. So this is very much also about timing. Like, is it the right timing right now? And then the final question is very much around, the willingness to commit. Are you willing to commit to the relationship, which includes a lot of work? Let's be honest about that. I mean, it includes being vulnerable. It includes opening up also when it's hard. It includes speaking your truth also when it's hard. In the end, it is on the conjunction of truth and love. That's where intimacy lies, as my mentor Terry Real says. I love that. It's where truth and love, where they meet each other, that's what intimacy is. And you need to be, willing to go there. Are you willing to commit to taking ownership of your own pieces? Are you willing to ask for help if you can't figure it out yourselves? Or are you someone who really opposes therapy, for example? So these are questions around the willingness to commit. So in essence, if you ask me, we have 4 pillars that we really need to bring our attention to when we start a new relationship, when we consider if someone is a good match for us. And of course, the connection is so beautiful and the chemistry is important, but it is just not all. And sometimes it might even be that the connection that you have is friendship-based first, and that you notice over time that something else is arising, and that something new is popping up, that the relationship is shifting, and that you realize then, hey, oh my God, there's so much compatibility, and we are so committed to each other's well-being, and we take care of each other. Maybe there's more here. It can be the other way around. It doesn't always have to start with that fairy tale, love at first sight, beautiful image that we tend to have. It's got to be there immediately. People work differently. Not everyone has that. So chemistry is one, or connection, at least a connection, whether you call that chemistry or not. We need compatibility. That's the second C, because there are 4 C's: connection, compatibility, capacity, and commitment. The willingness to commit. If these 4 pillars are all in place, then there's a beautiful opening to discover, what the future brings for the two of you. And remember that some of these ingredients take some time. Some people are like oysters. They open up slowly. Ask me how I know, because my partner is one. And I'm someone who's very, I can be a lot quicker. I have a different pace. And that's okay, and it's about showing patience. If there's a mutual willingness again, and you have both put in the time, then there's so much more that can happen for you. So I hope that this has helped you in any way, especially if you're dating. If you have any questions, then feel free to reach out. Know that on my website, michellecoops.com, I actually have a free gift. It's called the Clarity Quadrant, and it helps you to answer a number of questions that are, very important in figuring out if someone is a match or not. And also, even if you're not dating, if you want to get clear on what you want in the future, you want to get clear on the relationship that is going to fit you, then fill this out, because it's a tool that's really going to give you direction on what you do want. Not on what you don't want, but on what you do want. Good luck. Thank you so much for listening. It's been my absolute pleasure to share this with you again. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode, and if you're hungry for more, please check out my website, michellecoops.com, and subscribe to my newsletter, in which I share so much value every single week. Have a magical day. Stay raw, stay real, stay revelicious.